well, concrete around the yard, you know, like there were potholes full of water everywhere, you know, and even in around the machines that had a roof on, the roofs were leaking, and you know what clay is like when it gets wet, you know, and it just become a glue pot in some places, you know, up around the clay area where they fed it into the mills and that up around there, it just was pure glamour.
Well, we know that we walked over the clay pits here one day when it was wet, and you were no distance until there was that much clay sticking to your shoes.
That's right, that's right.
Unbelievable.
But you know, for all that, God, there was some clay used in the yard. You know, like there was over 600 ton a week of wear. You know, when I say wear, like pipes and product that went through the kilns. You know, and like, you know, the mills were going. You couldn't hear your ears with. There was 3 mills going. There was a fire clay mill. There was a grog mill. The grog mill was a mill that ground up all the broken pipes and everything, and reed sacks all come back up the yard again, and they were put through this grog mill, which ground them down into a fine gravelly thing, you know, and it was mixed with the clay again, and it passed up into the wet mill, you know, and that whole thing was processed again into clay. Well, funny enough, the grog was very necessary anyway, like, because it kept the clay open. You know, if you had pure fire clay, you never could have dried it without cracking it. You know, so this ingredient then kept the clay from cracking. You know, but it was very useful. There was little loss in the yard at that time. You know, everything went back in again. You know.
Remember, we used to do the local schools used to go and make ashtrays and all sorts of things and get them fired down there. Do you remember?
That's right. We used to do that. The children's stuff would have put it into the dryers for them, or indeed if it sat up in the school long enough, it was dry enough and it went on into the kilns. You know. But I can mind. The more we never used it in the yard, but ball clay. There's a lot of ball clay even in the area yet, you know. But we run it like sweet milk into molds, and that was sent out to I think maybe as far away as the Philippines, you know. It was used for China, you know, and.
It was like a Porian clay, you know.
And
well, there are deposits of it in this area.
It was pure white, so it was, you know, and it was dried up in the German kiln, which was a very useful place.
But you're talking there too about the level of productivity. Obviously, it was a huge market for the product. You know, you were feeding the market. The fact that you were working so hard and producing so much, it wasn't. Or I remember big stocks out around the yard, but you know, it had all been gone then. It was all.
But the building industry at that time, like, you know, like, it was flying. It was like, you know, like council houses, local government, you know, the council houses were being built, estates were being built everywhere, you know, and the demand for the stuff like was unbelievable.
Because plastic hadn't really been invented or took over.
That was it. At that time, like, they really had the monopoly at that time. Like, I don't.
Well, you've been talking the 60s and the 70s, really, whenever clay would really been at its height. You know, with the onset of the 70s, 80s, like, clay would have been in a bit of demise in terms of.
That's right. Once plastic came in, like, you know, once plastic came in, the writing was on the wall. There's no doubt about it. Like, you know, it really done a lot of damage. And or if you dig up a bit of ground that you come across a crockery sewer in it, like, it's shining like a bottle, you know.
It's durable.
Oh God, aye, like, you know, like, the ceramics everlasting. There was no way they would have broke down.
Yeah, but again, I suppose the other thing was cheaper and all that. Progress,
Oh, progress.
for
Sure.
want of a better word.
Progress.
But
Sure,
progress
you know.
also impacts in terms of, you know, it from being a significant employer in the town to,
But you see, like even at that, like you know, like it become then we didn't make any sewer pipes or ceramic stuff at all, you know, at that time for sewers anyway, you know. But then along came the flue liners, you know, where insurance and everything required that your chimneys had to be lined with a ceramic liner, you know, and all the rest. And we were away again, you know, for a number of years we made nothing, only flue liners, you know, as I say again, 6-inch, 8-inch, 9-inch flue liners, you know, and there were squads leaving the town here, van loads them to go down to Belfast and surrounding areas to line chimneys, and we were supplying all that as well, you know.
well, I presume they're still needed. Are they all imported now?
This is what I'm saying. Like Hepworth, they whenever they bought the yard, they stayed about 10 or 12 years. You know, they're still here, but only as a storing ground. Most of the flue liners now is coming in from Germany. You know, and here we're sitting here. The yards is closed, brickyards closed, pipe yards closed, other than just a stocking ground at the minute. Behind us here, there's a mountain of clay. You know, but
The bricks and all, or everything's being imported?
everything's away. Like the yards were left, they didn't even leave a bolt in them. Took away everything. All the machinery and everything that was there to produce is gone.
Mhm.
So
Well, it's ironic, and the latest bit of the pit that they opened up there up the Derry Road there is now grassed over. That in itself is a comment on where the clay industry and pipe industry and brick industry is here.
well, there you are. Just if we walk out round the back of the building here, you'll see 2 mountains of clay that were put up there. Look, see, I don't know what it cost for to put them up there, and there never come a lorry load out of it. And it's all sitting there. But as I say, there's no machinery, there's nothing left about the place for to make a pipe.
Well, I suppose in a lot of ways it begs the question, will there ever be a possibility, seeing as we have the natural resources, of a return to some sort of pipe and brick industry, and also as each generation passes on, will the skills have gone with them?
Well, I dare say, I suppose maybe the local knowledge of clay and whatnot, it'll be gone, you know, but you know, the material's still there, you know, and I'm very sure the process won't be any different. Like it'll be extruded or pressed if they really wanted to make flue liners or pipes here again, you know. Like the main thing is the material, and the material is here. You know, the material is here. They don't have to ship it in. They don't have to go any further than the town that they're in for to get it. You know, but I don't suppose we'll see it again in our time.
Well, whether the will is there or not is another thing. But if the market arises, market forces will decide. And in fact, you could see a situation whereby you could see a revival of the clay industry, the fire clay industry in Culzean.
Oh, that's for sure. But you know, like, you know, well, there's things that I don't know whether they'll ever be achieved again. But I can always remember a burner in the yard, Alfie Campbell. dead now, but the rest of them, like, but Alfie,